Today we're going to be finding out who the best operator in Rainbow Six Siege is. As you can see, we have a massive bracket here that we're going to be filling out using some opinion-based things, but mostly just factual, objective reasoning. Now this template that I'm using only goes up to year 8 season 4, so it is excluding Deimos, and it just happens to work out that way because it's an even 70 operators without Deimos, so the bracket fills out nicely, and let's be honest, Deimos wasn't going to make it that far anyway. So let's go ahead and get started. So first one here, we have Ace versus Jaeger. I'm going to go with Ace. He's probably the second best hard breacher in the game, so we're going to take him pretty far. Actually, that's a pretty tough matchup here in the second round against Dokkaebi, so we'll actually see how that goes. Maybe he won't go as far, but we're going to work on the first round here first. Now we have Vigil versus Alibi. I'm not one that really loves Alibi all that much, so I'm going to have to go with Vigil on that one. I'm not really going to overthink it. Now Cade versus Echo. Gotta go Cade. Echo had his time. He's, not really all that great anymore. Amaru versus Ella. Gotta go Ella with that one. Now we have Callie versus Warden. I think Callie's gadget is much more useful than Warden's, but I feel like Warden is much more practical, They're both situational, but I think Warden is gonna have to come out on top on that one. Kapkan versus Aruni, we're going Kapkan on that. Rook versus Ashe. Right now, Ashe has the upper hand on that one. Finka versus Sense. Sense is probably the worst operator of the game. We're going Finka. Now, Azami versus Flores. Flores is really good, so this is going to hurt, but I still think, Azami is just so good with what she does, manipulating the entire map. I think this has to go Azami. Lion versus Zofia. Zofia used to be my favorite, but man, that nerf a couple years ago really just killed her. And I love using Lion, a little bit of extra intel on attack when you're already at a disadvantage. We're going Lion. Frost versus Bandit. Bandit all the way. And now it's going to take us back up to our second round here on the left side of the bracket. For some reason it makes me go in a certain order, so I would realistically like to do the first round of both left and right side at the same time, or right after one another, but it looks like we're going to have to fill out the left side entirely first. Dokkaebi versus Ace. This is a tough one. I would say Ace is the second best hard breacher in the game, and obviously he has the AK-12. He's just a really solid attacker always. But Dokkaebi, what she does is just so different from every other operator. This is really tough. This is really, really hard. I'll say this would be like a 1A seed versus a 1B seed. They're both really good, but Dokkaebi has to have the upper hand there. Osa versus Vigil. Look, I don't think Vigil's all that great, but he's definitely better than Osa, so we're gonna say Vigil. Pulse versus Cade. This is tough. I really like Pulse, and I think these are just such different operators, such different defenders for what they do. You gotta go Cade. That's gotta be the right answer here. Wamai versus Ella. This is really tough. I think Wamai is an underplayed operator, and I think he is good. I really don't know where I'm going to go with this. I'm just trying to talk out loud, so I'm not really getting to anywhere. And Ella is a really good defender as well. I like her Scorpion Evo, even after all the nerfs. I don't know, just again, such a hard situation. Two defenders that do things so differently. I think I'm going to have to go Ella. Ram versus Warden. I don't know why Ram has a first round bye here. That's kind of ridiculous. I wasn't sold on Warden in the first round, and I'm still not sold on him in the second round here, but one thing's for sure, he's better than Ram. Fenrir versus Kapkan. It's tough because I think Fenrir is really good, but Kapkan has been a part of the meta for so long and is still holding strong. It's a really, really tight one. This would be like an 8-9 seed matchup, so I think this one is gonna go to Kapkan. I'm torn on that one, but we'll keep moving. I don't want to spend too much time dwelling because I'll probably change it a million times. Ying versus Ashe. Now this is really hard because I think Ashe right now is actually really good, but only really because of the ACOG on R4C. And it does make a huge difference, so I don't want to discredit that, but I think what Ying does in its entirety, not just, a single sight on her primary weapon, I think what she does is just much better. It really is it's almost impossible to stop a Ying. A Ying that knows what she's doing with her Candelas is just literally impossible. We gotta go Ying there. Lesion versus Finka. I'm gonna go Lesion on this one. I think he's in a really good spot in the game right now. He has changed a bunch over the years, but I still think he holds true. I think he's good. Zero versus Azami. This is again kind of a weird one for Zero to be the 1 seed, or maybe not being the 1 seed, but at least having the first round bye. But I didn't make the bracket, so this is definitely gonna be Azami for sure. Sledge versus Lion. Sledge is a classic. You gotta go with Sledge on that one. Maestro versus Bandit. Now I think Maestro is very good. I still think he's really hard to stop with the way that the game is right now. But there's no doubt in my mind that Bandit is gonna run deep into this tournament, or into this bracket, I guess. I think it's gotta go Bandit. Smoke versus Fuse. You know, Fuse is really fun on attack, but Smoke is just so practical. On every objective, he's good to have. He did take a little bit of a nerf with the deployable shield being taken away, but it hasn't affected him as much as I really thought it would. I still love playing Smoke. He's still one of my favorites. We're gonna take Smoke on that one. Dokkaebi versus Vigil. An inter-organization matchup here between two of the Korean operators. I really haven't been sold on Vigil this whole tournament. That's not gonna stop now. Dokkaebi is taking the win on that one. Cade versus Ela. This one has to go to Cade. We're not going to overthink it too much. His Artilas are just way too good. Warden versus Kapkan. I think this one has to go to Kapkan. Kapkan just barely squeaked out of that first or second round, I guess. We're going to take Kapkan's entry denials against Warden's smart glasses. Now this is tough because Ying really has held true to be like the exact same operator through all of these years. Like, she's really hardly been buffed or nerfed, and Legion has sort of seen it all. And this one is really hard. I could totally see you take it either way. When that's the case, I guess I have to go towards my personal opinion. I personally would say that a Ying is harder to stop than a Legion. We're gonna take Ying on that one. Azami versus Sledge. The new versus the old. This is a bit of a tough one. You know, Azami, she's had her moments. She used to be a lot better than she was. She had a little bit of a nerf. It really hasn't affected her as much as I thought it would. You know, she still holds true to be effective, just not quite as effective. And Sledge is another one of those operators that has really just held true through all of these years. He's been very consistent, but I don't know. I think the new is going to take over the old here. I think we got to go Azami. Bandit versus Smoke. Now, this is a old versus old, OG versus OG. Again, just such two different operators, two different defenders. They do such different things, and that's what makes this so hard, but it's got to be Bandit, right? I mean, it's just got to be. Yeah, we're going to stick with Bandit on that one. Now, Dokkaebi versus Cade. I think this will send us into our Elite 8, I'm pretty sure. I think this has to be Dokkaebi, you know? I mean, Cade is good and all, but he is replaceable, and I really don't think Dokkaebi is replaceable. Kapkan versus Ying. You know, Kapkan has just barely squeaked by here through these first few rounds of the bracket, and I think that he will not be able to do that this time around. I'm going to take Ying over Kapkan. Azami versus Bandit. This is still so hard. I know I'm going to get crucified for this, but I've gotta go Azami. I know about the nerf, trust me. It's gotta be Azami still though. Now we have Dokkaebi versus Ying. I'm gonna go Dokkaebi on this one. Ying's had a good run so far. Dokkaebi's been dominant. We're sending her into the final four. Dokkaebi versus Azami. Now this is gonna decide who our finalist is on the left side. This is so hard. Like, these are definitely two of the top 5 operators in the game, so it makes sense that it worked out this way. I didn't know if it was gonna be really weird considering the whole like way the bracket's set up, but I think it's gonna come down to personal. Actually, I don't know. Personally, I would say I would like Azami more than Dokkaebi, but I think objectively I have to recognize that what Dokkaebi does is so much greater than what Azami does. Dokkaebi's going to the final. Alright, so the left side is decided. We have Dokkaebi after squeaking out of that second round against Ace. She is in the final. Now we have Maverick versus Blitz. Right now, I think Blitz is very good. I think people aren't giving him enough credit. I'm going to take Blitz on that one. Tachanka versus Melusi. Look, Melusi's not going to go very far in this tournament. Actually, now that I'm seeing who her second round matchup is, she might actually go far in this tournament. But we'll get to that when we get to it. We're going to take Melusi over Tachanka. Goyo versus Mira, the battle of the vectors. We're going to take Mira on that all day. No one's going to, you know, really argue that one. Buck versus Gridlock. Gridlock is really good. I really don't think Gridlock gets enough credit for how good she is, but Buck is just another level. Such a great fragging attacker, and is really just so good with his utility, his skeleton key. This is again a really tough one. I'd say this is similar to that Kapkan Fenrir matchup. I'd say this is like an 8-9 matchup, really close, kind of just a coin flip, and we're gonna go with Buck. Thermite versus Capitao. Now Capitao is heavily underrated, but he is not going to be knocking off Thermite. Thermite's definitely a 1 or 2 seed in this whole entire thing. Yet here is Monty getting a first round bye. I have no idea how this was decided by whoever made this, but it's a little bit weird. Grim versus Thorn. Now, if there was a such thing as a 15 versus 16 seed matchup, then this would be it, you know? I don't really like Thorn, and I actually really do like Grim. I don't know why people really didn't even give Grim much of a chance after his buff, but if you haven't, go play him. He is so good right now. I'm gonna take Grim. Hibana versus Castle. I am a Castle enjoyer, and I'm not much of a Hibana enjoyer, I can't lie. But I do recognize that Hibana is probably better than Castle, which is crazy because Hibana does the same thing as Ace and Thermite and is just worse than them. Like, I think out of the three, she is the worst, and no one else in the game really does what Castle does, but I still think Hibana is going to beat out Castle, and I think that just goes to show how much value Hard Breachers really bring to Rainbow Six Siege. So Hibana's going to win that one. Thunderbird versus Cav. This is another rough matchup. I don't really know how to go about it. I'm going to go and say Cav, probably, but they're both very bad. Nook versus Clash. I would say that Nook is probably the worst operator in the game as of right now. You can disagree with me if you really want, but like it kind of just is showing pretty obviously that she is just awful. So I don't think Clash wins many matchups, but against Nook I think she definitely wins. Nomad versus IQ. IQ is one of my favorite operators in the entire game. She is criminally underrated, but I do recognize that Nomad is incredible at this game. To be honest, I think you should have a Nomad every single attack round, or at least most of them. So I'm going to have to go against IQ here. It hurts to do, but I'm trying to keep it as objective as I can. We're going with Nomad. Doc versus Oryx. We're going to say Doc on that one. And it looks like this matchup down here is already set up. I didn't even realize that on the other side here. It's kind of weird. This bracket is so weirdly set up. I don't understand. But hey, I'm just here to fill it out. I'm not here to do anything else. So we're going back up to the top here. Solis versus Blitz. This might be the easiest matchup for Solis. We're of course going Solis. Glaz versus Melusi. I said it during the first round. I didn't think Melusi was going that far, and it pains me to do this because Solis is going to have just a clear cakewalk through, but we're going with Melusi over Glaz. Mira versus Brava. Don't get me wrong, Brava is really, really good. I think if you learn how to play Brava the right way, which I'm thinking about making a video on, she's incredible. But even though Mira's been through some really tough nerfs, similar to Legion as well, I think she still holds true. I think Mira wins that matchup. Buck versus Thatcher. I wasn't so sold on Buck in that first round, and here is, kind of just similar. Thatcher definitely makes sense to have a first round bye here. One of the best operators in the game. Even with Thatcher being obsolete now, with a lot of attackers having impact EMPs, he is still so good. We're taking Thatcher in that one. Thermite versus Monty. The shield rework is not going to save us here. We're going Thermite. Mozzie versus Grim. This is a tough one because I do really like Grim, and as a former Mozzie enjoyer, he has become much harder to play with his P10 Roni no longer having the 1.5 times scope, but I still think Mozzie's going to hold true in this one. He's going to beat out Grim. We're going to take Mozzie. Mute versus Hibana. This is a hard one. They're kind of counterparts here. Actually, it's really not that much of a hard one. I don't know why I said that. It's definitely Mute every single time. Iana versus Cav. Another one that's really not all that hard. Cav barely skated through in the first round against one of the worst operators in the game. We're going to take Iana here to beat out Cav. Tubarao versus Clash. Tubarao, without a doubt, is one of the best operators in the game right now for sure. We're taking Tubarao. Twitch versus Nomad. Now, I really like Twitch. I think Twitch is really good, but like how I said, I sold Nomad really high up in that first round, and we're not going to come down from that high. We're taking Nomad through. Jackal versus Doc. There's a reason why this dude gets banned every single ranked game. We're taking Jackal. Valk versus Blackbeard. We're not losing any sleep over this one, although with his buff coming up later this year, maybe Blackbeard will be a tougher matchup for Valk. Maybe we'll have to redo this, but Valk is going to take that win right now. Solis versus Melusi. I said the last matchup for Solis was the easiest for her. Apparently I was wrong, because it only gets easier against Melusi. Solis is taking that one all day. Mira versus Thatcher. Now this is really hard. I'd say if we were looking at this in a tier list, like the S, A, B, C, and so on, I would probably put Mira and Thatcher both in the A tier right now. So I'd say they're both on the same level, but who is above the other? I'm gonna have to take Thatcher, as much as it pains me, because I feel like it's a really boring pick. We just gotta go with the facts here, and I think Thatcher is better. Mozzie versus Thermite. Thermite is probably the best hard breacher in the game still. We're taking him all day. Mute versus Iana. I feel like there was a point in time where Iana was really overhyped, and you'd probably take Iana in this situation, but I'm gonna go with the fundamentals, with the basics. I'm taking Mute. Tubarao versus Nomad. Now this is a great matchup. I was hoping that this is what it would come to when I was looking at this little region over here. Two operators that I think are fantastic to have on any single round that you're playing, and I think Tubarao is gonna take that one. Jackal versus Valk. Now this is a powerhouse matchup. Personally, I enjoy Valk much more, but for the same reasoning before that I said, there's a reason why this dude gets banned every single round. We're gonna go Jackal. Solis versus Thatcher. Now this is an interesting one. This is the new versus the old yet again. I brought up how Thatcher is a little bit obsolete nowadays in a previous matchup and how it didn't really matter in that regard, but here I think it does matter. What Solis does is just so unique and brings so much extra utility, so much extra value to the team, and you can't really replace that, and there are ways to replace stature now. We're taking Solus. Thermite versus Mute. Now this is a good one here. Again, two counterparts meeting against one another, but Mute is replaceable for what he does. But then again, I guess Thermite does have Ace and Hibana. I don't know. This could go either way. This really could go either way, okay? I'm gonna take Thermite here. Tubarão versus Jackal. What an interesting matchup. I think at this point in the bracket, you could go any way. I'm gonna say Jackal. I really think a lot of people would say Tubarão here, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say Jackal. I'm gonna say that Solus takes the win here over Thermite. Alright, so now we're heading into our championship round. We have the final two from the right side of the bracket. It is Solus and it is Jackal. It's tough because I think the logic of this dude gets banned every single ranked round has pulled Jackal through the majority of this bracket single-handedly, and I just don't think that's the case here. I think Solus outvalues him, and that's what we're gonna go with here. In our final championship here, we have Dokkaebi versus Solus. I like this. I think Dokkaebi is the best attacker, and I think Solus is the best defender. So I think this actually really does even out, and I'm glad it worked out this way. I think what this is going to come down to is every single round that you play, a Dokkaebi would benefit you. Every single round. Like literally, there is no situation when you shouldn't have a Dokkaebi. Now, I think it is arguable that maybe 9 times out of 10 you could have a Solus, but you know, maybe that one time when there isn't any vertical play possibility, or it's not a drone heavy map where Solus isn't really all that wanted or needed. And I think that 1 time out of 10 is what it comes down to, and I think Dokkaebi takes the win here. So there you have it. That is it. Dokkaebi knocks off Solus in the championship to be named the best operator in Rainbow Six Siege. Amidst all the nerfs and all of the different drama, she still holds true. She comes out on top, and I of course want to hear what you guys think down in the comments. What would you guys change? What do you guys disagree with my reasoning? And also be sure to subscribe and check out some of my other Rainbow Six Siege videos if you haven't done that already. Besides for that, I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.